Hello! Today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm not going to be playing with eyeshadows, but today I just wanted to talk to you guys about brand controversies, brands we don't support, and where I fall on these things. So if you want to see some brands that I am not currently supporting, as well as my thoughts about this topic overall, then go ahead and just keep on watching and subscribe. Before we get too far into this though, I do want to give a little bit of a content warning. Some of these brands have done some very deeply problematic things that target specific groups. And so I want to make sure that before we start talking about these things in detail, you know that. And if you don't feel comfortable talking about those things, then this is not the video for you. But with that, I wanted to start with why even bother talking about this? I feel like this is a thing that often gets alluded to and that I allude to in my own videos, but is never like explicitly discussed. I feel like I often will see creators on Instagram who will not tag certain brands, but then there's no explanation as to why or anything like that. And so if you miss it, you kind of miss it. And for me personally, I have this channel to hopefully be a consumer resource and use my experiences as a consumer so that way we can navigate this niche community as well as possible. And so I hope that you guys can use this video as a reference for this topic in the future, but keep in mind, like, I tried to do the due diligence that I could on researching these brands and figuring out everything that kind of went into people's decision to not support them. But at the end of the day, this is my opinion, especially some more so than others, and I have not had these negative experiences that I'm going to be talking about, and so I am a secondhand source. Take everything that I say with a grain of salt. And honestly, this is where you guys come in. You are always so good about leaving comments and adding context to my videos. This one especially, I'd love to hear what you all think. If you have brands you don't support, if you've heard similar things to what I discuss or the opposite things to what I say in this video, whatever you've heard or know about these topics or other brands or whatever else, please leave it down below, and let's try to make this a guide and a resource for each other as we navigate the indie makeup community. So where do I stand on this? There are a lot of brands that I don't support in the indie makeup space. Some of them I have supported in the past before I knew about things that made me not want to support them any longer. Some of them I've never supported. Some of them I didn't even know about until I started looking into all of this stuff. And this goes for not only indie makeup, but all elements of my life. There are a ton of brands that I try my hardest not to support. To name a few examples, I don't eat at Jimmy John's because of the exotic hunting and poaching that the owner has done. I try not to buy Nestle products because of their egregious human rights record and forced child labor and all of those terrible things. If you want, look into it. Nestle has a very bad track record. But I just use those two as examples off the top of my head. This isn't just indie makeup. I view myself as a consumer putting my money where my beliefs are, and so I try my best. And again, I'm not perfect, but I try to make sure I'm supporting things that I believe in and that I want to see succeed. So a few things that are automatic no's for me. Any type of ism being displayed by a brand is an instant no. I'm not supporting your brand if you have a history of racism, sexism, Islamophobia, really anything like that. If you are being exclusionary, I don't want to support your brand. There are also some like ethics things that are automatic no's for me. If you're conning people, if you're price gouging, things like that, it's a no. It's an absolute no. But beyond those most egregious examples, there are other things that I just choose not to support. So like I was saying before, my personal ethos with indie makeup and really just all purchases is I'm for the consumer, and I like brands that are professional and have honest pricing and good quality. So when I say I'm for the consumer, I don't receive any PR, and if I do, I'm really hoping that I can come back to you with honest feedback regardless of if I get things for free or not. That is my goal, because as someone who does spend their money on makeup, it's very expensive. It's so expensive. And I want to make sure that if you're also spending your money on makeup, you're making the choices that you're going to be happiest with and that are going to be best for your financial situation. And I kind of feel like oftentimes, especially in the indie makeup community, it seems like people try to give brands a break, so to speak, like, oh, it's a one-woman show, you need to be more patient, you need to be more understanding. But like at the end of the day, it's your money. Like, this isn't a charity, it is a business. And so you should be receiving good quality, good prices, and good professional service with whatever it is that you're purchasing, because it is a competitive market and it's your money. And I want to make sure through my videos and my things that I discuss that I'm trying to help you with that. So that's the lens I'm coming at this with. And earlier I said that I like brands that are professional, and what I view as professional is, first of all, timely. And that means timely as in responds to customer service inquiries in a timely manner, ships things in a timely manner, and is very forthcoming about time frames for receiving shipments. I don't like brands that are like, oh, things will get to you fast, and then months go by and you're like, where is my stuff? I also think of professional as being able to take criticism in a kind and understanding way. So again, this is a business, and so if I purchase something and I don't like it, I'm allowed to say I don't like it, and you might not like that I say that, but I feel like it's not the brand's place to like clap back and be like, well, you're just not using it right or anything like that, because like, you guys, imagine if, I don't know, like some large brand, like imagine if Kraft mac and cheese was clapping back at people in the comments who say they don't like Kraft mac and cheese and being like, well, you just aren't cooking it right. Like, that's crazy. I feel like that's crazy. And so when I'm talking about professional, I appreciate when brands can say, like, either A, just don't respond if someone's critiquing your product, or B, if you are going to respond, just say, we're sorry you didn't like that. We hope you have better experiences in the future. If you want to discuss this more, reach out to us. You know, like, that's all it really needs to be. And I feel like it's like, again, this weird indie makeup space where you see brand owners like commenting on people's posts and things and talking about, you know, the customer being wrong. Customer's always right. It's a cliche, and it's not always true. Sometimes there are like some really extreme examples of customers being ridiculous, like see every video of people being crazy on airplanes. But I think overall, if you're going to have a brand, you gotta understand that not everything is going to be everyone's favorite all the time. And then the last one, I touched on this earlier, but to me, what makes a brand professional is not using the fact that they are a small operation as a shield. And I think that there are some really prime examples of this, of smaller businesses that are just as professional and are working hard to ensure a good customer experience, regardless of the fact that they might be a one-woman business or a one-person business. So hopefully by me telling you some of the things that I'm looking for in the indie brands that I support and what are some automatic no's for me, hopefully this kind of helps give you an idea of where I stand, so that way now as I start talking about which brands I don't support, it kind of can provide you some insight in what I do support, not just what I like don't support. Okay, so this is the part that might get a little bit spicy. And like I said at the beginning, some of these things are documented, and I can share with you in the description all of the resources I have on these brands and what I know and why I choose to not support them. But at the end of the day, these are my personal choices. And what I have to say about this is I do not want to impose my beliefs on you. This is a guide based on my beliefs, but if you say, well, you don't shop from this place, but I do, that's fine. I am not here to say anything about you as a person for what brands you support or anything like that. That is not my place, and it's not what I'm trying to do. But I hope that you all will give me the same respect in appreciating that these are brands that I personally don't support. And even if you do, that's totally fine. But at the end of the day, these are brands that I just choose not to give my money to because there is so much competition in the indie makeup space. And I just don't want to give my money to brands that I don't think deserve it. With that, let's get into brands I don't support. So first up, I do not have any interest in purchasing from Touch of Glam in the future. And this is one that it seems like a lot of people don't. So it's why I'm starting with this one. So personally, I have purchased from Touch of Glam once, and I've been gifted some shadows by my friend Olivia as well. And for the most part, I do like the shadows. Like, the multi-chromes are very, very nice, and they're very shifty, and they've got a great feel. But if you saw my single shadow tag video, you will know Touch of Glam also makes my least favorite shadow I have ever tried. And it's that inconsistency that is like strike one for me personally against the brand. I don't want to spend $5 to $20 on an eyeshadow if I'm not 100% sure that it's going to be good. That's just how I feel personally. The next strike for Touch of Glam for me personally and my order with them is just their insane time turnover rate from placing your order to receiving it. So I had placed my order for 2021 Black Friday, and I got that order sometime in March. I don't remember off the top of my head, but that means that my order took between 3 to 4 months from the time that I paid my money to get my order to the time that I actually had my order in my hands. And like I said, I respect the fact that sometimes things move slower with a one-person brand, and I appreciate that transparency. And in Touch of Glam's defense, they do say on their website processing can take a few months. But I feel like, on Etsy, Touch of Glam has a ton of reviews. They are very widely talked about on Instagram. And at some point, as your brand grows, you've got to accommodate to create more realistic timelines. And again, just me personally, I feel like don't take a shot every time I say that in this video. You might die. But I feel like, especially for the price that you're paying for Touch of Glam shadows, which are some of them more than $20 per one shadow, part of that cost, I would assume, is going to brand operations. And with that, I just think that we're at a place where orders should be getting out more than a quarter to a third of a year after they're placed. So that's strike two for me personally. Beyond that, I also just find it to be a very expensive brand. Like I said, some of the shadows on the Etsy site are over $20, and that's a lot of money. Like, that is a fast food order for me and my husband, that is, especially now with inflation and all of those things, like, that's nothing to scoff at. And so for me personally, the expensiveness of the brand is another reason that they're just not on my list anymore. Beyond that, I have not had any personal negative experiences with the brand, but on Reddit and in conversations that I've had with my friends who are also into indie makeup, there seems to be a pattern of negative customer and creator experiences with Touch of Glam. They are one of those brands that's very quick to clap back at negative reviews or things of the like. There's someone that I know who placed an order and had a shadow missing, and when she reached out to the brand about the issue, they accused her of stealing the shadow and that they actually sent it and she was lying, which again, weird approach to take as a brand. I personally feel like it wasn't even an expensive shadow. It was like one of the least expensive shadows in her order, and she was like, that's a weird approach to take. And so like just all of those things kind of put together is enough for me to be like, you know what, I don't need to support your brand. And so that's one that for me is one that I don't have any interest in. But something that I should note, and I should have noted this before, but I'll throw it in here. I am definitely a firm believer in second chances. Some brands more so than others. Like I said, if you do like an automatic disqualifier for me, like if you have a history of racism or things like that, that's a no. Like you got to work really, really hard and do a lot of growth to gain me back as a customer after something like that. With the negative customer interactions and things, again, you got to put in the work to get me back as a customer, but I don't want to be out here like perma-canceling brands for having bad interactions with customers or anything like that. I do believe in room for growth. Another brand that I'm kind of like cautiously watching, I don't like flat out not support them, I don't think. Honestly, I'm still kind of gathering my thoughts on this. But another brand is Divina. And I know that some of you really like Divina, and that is fine. If you have Divina shadows, if you use Divina shadows, if you love Divina shadows, that's completely fine. I have and used and love Divina shadows too. But I feel like I have started to see some things that make me personally a little bit uncomfortable with the brand. So recently, Regina on Instagram did a post about some Divina shadows that she didn't like, and I actually did a video about these same shadows, and I also did not like them. And pretty much as soon as that post went live, Divina was like in the comments of that video with their official brand account, essentially like refuting people's experiences with those shadows. And I just think that's an interesting stance to take. That's one of those moments where like, just let people say that they don't like a product. Like, it's okay, you know? And so stuff like that kind of makes me uncomfortable buying from a brand because it feels like they don't want any negative feedback. And I don't know. I just feel like if you're making products, like, and even me, like making videos, not everyone likes my videos, and that's okay. Like, my videos aren't for everyone. And, you know, when people tell me they don't like my videos, I'm okay with that. Like, not everyone has to, you know? And so that is just something that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Along with that, I've seen stories of people having issues with Divina kind of like clapping back when they've had issues using like coupon codes in the past. I have mentioned this in a few of my videos on Divina, but I still find it a little strange that they had their Black Friday sale go live with a total restock of the brand on Thanksgiving Day when orders weren't going to start being fulfilled that weekend anyways. And it was the first full restock they'd done since June. It just felt kind of like, I don't know, shady to customers to like put them in a situation where you have to buy on Thanksgiving Day or things will be sold out. You know, I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. And so it feels like 1,000 cuts that have just kind of led me to a place of feeling like I don't want to purchase from the brand right now. And it's not a forever thing, but it's definitely for a right now thing. So those first two examples of brands I don't support are brands that are mostly on this list for some unprofessionalness I've seen as a consumer or I've heard about as a consumer. Now we're getting into some that are more egregious in my personal opinion. The first is probably the least so and definitely depends on your opinion on the topic of cultural appropriation. So this is a topic that overall I am very conflicted about. I think that it's a term that gets thrown around really loosely, and because of that, I am very cautious in using that term. But at the end of the day, for me, the issue is not so much cultural appropriation as it is cultural reference without representation. And I'll explain what I mean by that a little bit more. Overall, I think that cultural appropriation is something that requires a lot of context from situation to situation. So, for example, I studied abroad in Ghana during college. I did a cultural class there. I spent a summer there. I learned the local language Chi. I got to visit a lot of cultural sites. I got to go to lectures at different universities in the country and all of those things. So at the end of that, we had a giant ceremony and each of us had a custom traditional like Ghanaian outfit made for us. That is something that I am terrified to wear in the United States because I know from a glance, I am a white woman who is wearing a traditional African country's garb, and that can appear as cultural appropriation. For me, I don't feel like it falls in that category, but I can see why other people would. And so I'm using this example just to show this is a very nuanced conversation, and I appreciate it as that. Now, let's talk about it in conjunction with an indie makeup brand. So some of you may know I purchased from Glam Shop recently, and I really loved the eyeshadows I got. After that, I noticed on Instagram that a creator I really like had used some of their shades and not tagged the brand. So I reached out to them and they explained their rationale for not tagging them publicly is a history of Glam Shop using different cultural pieces that are key to predominantly Black and brown cultures, but then not creating options for Black and brown folks to use. So some of the examples are using things like mandalas and dream catchers on the front of packaging, which have cultural significance for different groups. And like I said before, a lot of those groups tend to have like medium to deep skin. Then on the makeup that had that packaging, they did not have like a face palette deep enough for medium, deep, dark skin tones. That leads to an automatic no for me in like future purchases. But here's the thing, right? Glam Shop is a Polish brand, and Europe has a different understanding of cultural appropriation versus appreciation compared to like me being in the United States. And I totally recognize that. And like I said, if you continue to purchase from Glam Shop, that is totally fine. If you love your Glam Shop shadows, that is fine. I am still going to wear and use and love Tone Back because that shade is beautiful. But I see the argument of, you know, it's a different country, they have a different understanding, a different appreciation, and I totally respect that. However, I personally feel like once you open up to an international market, you need to cater to international skin tones and people. And by using these elements from different cultures and then not including options for people from those cultures, it feels like a marketing ploy with no substance behind it, and that deeply bothers me. So personally, I'm taking a step back from Glam Shop for that reason, even if you choose not to. One that I did not know about until I saw a comment on a video and then kind of dove down the rabbit hole was Give Me Glow, which is a shame because I love the Give Me Glow palettes, like the really large empty magnetic palettes. They're the ones that I bought a ton of them, and they're what I use for my eyeshadow storage. But I was unaware of some problematic things that happened with Give Me Glow back around 2020. Tina from The Fancy Face did a video about this, and I'll link it down below. But essentially, she called out Give Me Glow for performative allyship with the Black Lives Matter movement that was really prominent and highly talked about in 2020. They were making posts about supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, but Tina mentions that behind the scenes, they were not paying Black creators, they were misrepresenting the owner's own race, and all of these things, and it just is icky, you guys. So Give Me Glow is a brand that I have no intention of supporting moving on, and I have not supported since I learned about, and it's a tough one because, again, I think that they do great palettes, they do great shadows, but it's not worth it to me. It is not worth it. I will find different magnetic palettes to use or to purchase in the future. And I guess this is another place where I'm like, I thought of something I should have said earlier, but I didn't. People fall on a spectrum of whether or not to use things from brands that they no longer support. The way that I feel about this is that I paid for it. The brand already has my money, whether or not I'm using the product, and so I'm just going to use the product if it's a product that I like. I won't recommend them in videos, and if I do use them in videos, I try to make a note if I don't support the brand. But I still do include those products in videos because, again, I recognize just because I don't support a brand doesn't mean other people don't support a brand. And it also means that there might be other people like me who have supported a brand in the past, have those products, and are wanting to still make sure that they don't get duplicates of things that they already own. And I totally appreciate that. So that's why you'll still see me swatch things on camera from brands that I don't support, but I will try to always make a note if I don't support them. And from now on, I'll have this video to include as a reference for why I don't support them. So another brand that I don't support is JD Glow, and I know a lot of people in the indie makeup community don't support JD Glow anymore. This comes after they made some anti-choice comments, and again, for me, I am definitely pro-choice. I say that loud and proud. I believe that women's health is up to each individual woman, and we should treat it just as any other health matters. So after those comments, it kind of was, the straw that broke the camel's back for me, and it turned me off from the brand. Before that, I had heard from some friends that they had had bad customer service experiences with JD Glow, and it was really interesting because in doing the research for this video and finding all of these sources and things, I found a blog post from Working with Monolid's blog. It was dated like 9 years ago, and they had created a master list of indie brands with controversies, and one of the brands was JD Glow, and they talked about bad customer service, hygiene issues, and I have that blog post linked below, so if you want to look at the full list, go ahead. I'll be talking about it a little bit more later on, but it just was interesting to see that it seems like JD Glow has consistently had customer service issues, and that my friend's experience wasn't just a one-off. This is like a pattern, and so that combined with the anti-choice stuff is a no for me. The next brand I want to talk about is Adept Cosmetics, and this one, I'm not gonna lie, this is a real head scratcher for me personally. So when I say that, it seems like everyone saw this play out. Like this was a very big thing when it happened. And now it's been like, I don't know, like a year, maybe 2 since that happened. And it kind of feels like the collective indie space has just forgotten about this experience. And I don't know, it's kind of weird to me. But let me know what you guys think. So a couple of years ago, Adept had I would say a pretty large ableism scandal. So a customer reported that they had struggled to purchase from Adept. They left a comment on one of Adept's posts saying that they had struggled to purchase because their website lacked like text to speech and things like that to help this customer who is blind purchase from the website. And by the time they were able to navigate it, the product had sold out, which again, that's a whole different thing. I really hate this artificial scarcity that brands do. It's the same exact reason why I don't have diamonds in my wedding ring or my engagement band, but that's a totally different thing. But in response to that, Adept kind of did a textbook example of how not to handle critique. They like clapped back in the comments, and then as things started ramping up, they just started deleting comments, limiting comments. Like they didn't want to hear anything about it. They completely ignored it. They didn't put out a statement. And then I don't know, at least a week after the fact, they then came out and were like, we were in the wrong. We're going to do better next time. And I'm like, I don't know. The whole thing left a very, very bad taste in my mouth. I used to teach, as a lot of you know, and I taught inclusion, and I believe in a universal design for learning and just access in general. And so I feel like the moment that you learn something isn't accessible, that should be the moment that you reassess, it's a moment for growth. And I just feel like they handled it really, really poorly. And ever since, it has been a brand that I am not interested in. Plus, I bought a few Single Shadows before that whole thing happened, and I didn't like them. So that just kind of is a cherry on top. Bad brand practices and also not a great product. So that's a brand I have no interest in supporting in the future. The last smaller indie brand that I have to talk about is Saints, Angels, Sinners. And I actually did a video about this a while ago. I'll link it down below. But even since then, Saints, Angels, Sinners kind of continued to bury themselves deeper and when I was writing my list and trying to brainstorm for this video, I wrote rationales for why I don't support each brand. And for Saints, Angels, Sinners, I just wrote everything because it feels like they've misfired in pretty much every scenario. There was a situation of them faking a donation to a charity. There was issues with them clapping back on commenters and creators and suing a creator. It's just a whole multiple seasons long plot for a drama series over there. So I, again, have all this linked if you want to dig into it. But there's just a whole laundry list of reasons that I don't support Saints, Angels, Sinners. So a few larger brands that I wanted to mention as well. Ofra and Nudistics have a similar history of donating to political candidates like Donald Trump, and I in no way want my money to go to brand owners that I don't align with, let alone political candidates that I don't align with. So the moment I found out that they were donating to those campaigns, I dropped them faster than you could blink. Those brands are brands that are forever off my list. I never purchased from Nude Sticks. I did purchase from Ofra during a Ulta 21 Days of Beauty. I've got one highlighter, but I do not plan on purchasing from them again after learning that information. That's another brand that to me is kind of a head scratcher because I remember that being a big thing when that came out. And there are a lot of very large creators who still support Ofra, take PR from Ofra, talk about Ofra and like all of that. And I'm like, I don't know about that. But like I said, to each their own. To me though, especially if you've got a large platform and you're not like just a consumer, but you're like promoting that brand, I'm like, I don't know about that. And then the last brand I want to talk about is Juvia's Place. This is a brand that back in the day when Nikki Tutorials was talking about Juvia's Place eyeshadows, I got the palettes. I got the Afrique palette, and I got the palette, like I got it like when it launched. It was a big thing back in the day because like no one was doing greens. It was like a 9-pan. It had like a dark green and a bright green and an orange and then some like more neutral shades. So I got that one, and I was a big Juvia's Place fan back in the day. But Juvia's Place is again a brand that's kind of a head scratcher. I feel like they will have a controversy, do a terrible job at addressing it, kind of just let it blow over, and then people talk about them again, and then they have another controversy, and so on and so forth. For me, the one that sticks out in my head as the most egregious was the use of an Asian slur on their official Instagram, and like it took them forever to respond to it, and it was just like, it was bad, you guys. It was bad. And so that's a brand that, again, I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do it. It's not the look. That's a little bit about brands I don't support and why. But what about brands that you guys don't support? I was really curious to see if I was missing things. Like I said earlier, I was doing some research, trying to figure out information about these different brands. I found a blog that doesn't appear to be active anymore called Working with Monolids, and it had a ton of amazing resources, and I'm really sad that I discovered it like years after its last post, but it is what it is. I'm going to be using a post that they did a long time ago in an upcoming video too. So I found that really helpful. I found some old Reddit posts from the Indie Makeup and More community, a ton of stuff on Beauty Guru Chatter, but I felt like a lot of it was a little bit dated. And so I made my own post on Indie Makeup and More and asked for an updated version of brands that people don't support and reasons why. And I got some really good feedback on that, as well as conversations that I have had privately with my friends who are also in the indie makeup space. So let's kind of go over some of the answers that I got from those avenues. First one, Betchy Beauty. I think I'm saying that right. This is one, I had never heard of this brand before Hannah Louise Poston did a video about her eyeshadows that she got from them. I don't even know when that was, but the comments of that video were very clear that people do not like this brand for a lot of the same reasons as Touch of Glam and kind of Saints, Angels, Sinners combined. It just feels like a very messy brand that takes a long time to get back to people and to send out orders. And all in all, it just feels like it's got a really messy history. See below. Face Glaze Beauty was mentioned to me. It seems like they've got a history of price gouging, and I do not like that. I think that's very messed up, especially if you're counting on people who are new to the indie space stumbling across your brand and assuming that those are normal prices. That's not the look. So that's one that I have seen other people talk about. The next is Odin's Eye, and there were a few different reasons listed for this. One is that they have a history of a lack of representation, same as Glam Shop, which again, same argument can be made for being a European brand, but I still think that once you're catering to an international audience, it is your due diligence to make sure that you're catering to all of that international audience. Beyond that though, they've got issues with customer service and quality. So Y'all, I made a video about duping out their single shadows when they came out, and I didn't purchase them. And I gotta say, dodged a freaking bullet with that one. This is another one where larger influencers are kind of sending off some red flags to me, because everyone who got those eyeshadows was like, these are the best, they're so amazing, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, people found that they went off quickly, they creased horribly on the lids, they didn't perform well, and all of that just is like not a good look. So that's one that I heard a few different times. Another one is Pro Glitz. That one, long turnover times for receiving orders, bad brand communication, and those types of things. Next is Lemonhead LA. Someone in my Reddit post mentioned that the owner had a history of blackface, which again, automatic no. I remember, this shows you how long I've been into makeup. I remember when ColourPop first released their glitter pots that were a direct competitor to Lemonhead, and Beauty News did a piece about like supporting the smaller indie brand. And since then, I guess all of this information about the owner has come out, but I'm like, again, wipe off the brow. Glad I did not purchase from that brand back when I was like considering supporting them over ColourPop. Next is Unearthly Cosmetics. So apparently, again, we've got bad customer relations, kind of an unprofessional vibe. And the person on my Reddit post mentioned them being a private label brand. And that is a whole topic that I'm planning on doing a video about soon. So stay tuned for that, but know that it's coming, and that's why I'm not talking about it in this video. And then lastly, Gourmand Girls was mentioned, same reasons overall, and also, again, mentions of them being privately labeled. And I should note, Saints, Angels, Sinners, which is a brand I talked about, is also private labeled. I hope that this video was helpful in navigating these treacherous waters. I gotta be honest and say I'm a little nervous to make and post this video, because I know that this is a very controversial topic overall, like the idea of supporting versus not supporting brands and why we do or don't support those brands. But I feel like it's a conversation that's really important to have, because at the end of the day, these are brands that we are giving our hard-earned money to, and I think it's important to have a conversation about which brands we're supporting, why we're supporting them, and letting each other know if there are brands that maybe we shouldn't support. I know that looking at my makeup collection, there are some things that I wish I hadn't purchased, and if I had known things that I know now at the time, I wouldn't have purchased. So I'm hoping that this can be a helpful resource for you all in deciding who to purchase from and why. But like I said, if you have products from these brands that you've already purchased, if you continue to purchase from these brands, that is your choice as a consumer. I am not here to tell you what to do with your money. I am only here telling you what I do with my money and why, and what other people have said they do with their money and why. And what you do with your money is up to you. If you have brands you don't support, please let us know down below and tell us why, because I think it's important to have these conversations. I know that this is a pretty negative video though, and I am planning on doing a kind of part 2 and ranking all the brands that I know about and telling you which ones I would stay away from, but also which ones I love and really do believe in and support. And so if you're walking away from this being like, God, there's a lot of brands that I shouldn't purchase from in the indie space, don't worry. There are a ton of indie beauty brands, and some of them are truly amazing, both with products, pricing, and customer service, and all of that good stuff. So if you want to see all of that, be sure to subscribe. Stay tuned. It is coming in the future. And until I see you next time, I hope that you stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy. Bye.